How's everyone doing tonight? Welcome, welcome. Thanks so much for coming out. So, I'm glad it worked out with the storm and all. I know you all got the announcement that we might have to postpone or whatnot, but it looks fine because, we don't know what's going to happen. We're going to get anywhere from 0 to 84 inches sometime between now and next February. In fact, we talked to the weather guys earlier. In fact, as best as we know, this is the latest forecast. With these Power of Zero presentations, there's no real formal talk that I have. There's no formal presentation. This is more or less group therapy. Yes. And in a large part because Power of Zero concepts, these are mind-melting concepts. How much have we been told all our lives, never pay more in taxes than you have to? Defer, 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 right? So when someone comes to you and says, oh yeah, you should probably accelerate taxation and pay more than you have to, mind blown. So a lot of times it's good for us to be in this room together to reinforce for each other that we are not crazy for wanting to pay more in taxation, and also to just share ideas, share concepts, reinforce the strategies. So thank you so much for coming out tonight to help us with that. First, let's have a moment of silence for all the tax dollars that have to die in this process. Couple of just quick announcements. We have some events coming up. Some of you may know, I now do a presentation at Avery Point. We teach at Avery Point. And we teach a program called The Changing World of Retirement Planning. We have that coming up in just, I guess, next week. And it's on 2 consecutive Thursdays or 2 consecutive Tuesdays. You're welcome to attend. If you want to get more of a deep dive, kind of a refresher, bring your neighbors, bring your friends, help introduce them to some of the things that we do. Second, we're announcing today the save the date of our annual client dinner will be on Friday, July 31st, 2026, and it will be at the Society Room in downtown Hartford. Has anybody been there, by the way? It's kind of like this Hogwarts kind of, so we're going to be doing a Harry Potter theme. And I'm not a Harry Potter person, I'm more a Trekkie, but Miss Roy in the back here, she's got us covered. As always, you don't have to dress. It's fun if you want to. You're welcome to. But please, just come. We're going to have the place decked out with candles floating, and it'll be a good time. We also have some guests with us tonight, and while we're doing the guests, I need to do a few disclosures. Disclosure number 1 is that we will be discussing tax strategies tonight. I am not a tax advisor. I don't play one on TV. I'm not licensed to be one, so I can only give you generalizations, which is why I'm glad that my very good friend, Lucia Schubert, is here with us tonight. Lucia? Lucia Schubert, CPA, she'll help us to make sure everything is accurate in terms of numbers and so on. I also have a couple of other friends with us here tonight. I have Ryan Pulakis. Ryan comes from what we would call the LIRP factory. We also have Ryan's friend Jake, also from the LIRP factory, except he's on, way in the back there, he's on the private pension side. We were supposed to have my friend Daryl Miller here, and he had to cancel at the last minute, but Daryl Miller is our resource for personal health insurance. If you need to cover the gap between, retirement age to when 65, and you're looking to shop, you're looking to understand Connecticut, all the exchange, all those options, the subsidies that are being taken away soon, we have a resource for that now. And then finally, Carly Rossworm, who is not here, was not planning to be here because she's in Indiana. But she is our resource for Medicare solutions. So prior to age 65, we work with Daryl for personal coverage, and after age 65 for Medigap coverage and those sorts of things, we have a resource for that also. Tonight, I'm hoping that we can talk about what we call the bite the bullet phase. And this is becoming more and more important as people are starting to realize, hey, Roth conversions, that counts as income. That might affect my Social Security. That might affect my Medicare. How many folks are aware of IRMA? IRMAA. Who can tell me what IRMA is? For what prize do we have? We need to have those handy.
Tiny violin.
Tiny violin. Anyone want to share what IRMA is?
Retirement, something.
Something. So anyways, IRMA is because your income is above certain thresholds, your Medicare becomes more expensive. And we want to pay attention to IRMA so that we don't accidentally cross over a threshold we don't want to cross over, and Lucia's going to help us to do that. My point is, there are going to be side effects by doing Roth conversions and implementing some of these things. We may have higher health care, maybe higher Social Security taxes for a brief period of time. We call it the bite the bullet phase. Get through it quickly so that on the other side, we have a longer, cheaper ride because we are now in the zero tax bracket. And remember, if taxes double, twice zero is still zero. And on that note, we have one last special guest that I would like to bring up tonight to talk a little bit more about that. And ladies and gentlemen, we have our good friend, Mr. David McKnight, here with us today. Hey, sir, how are you? Let me get you to unmute here if we can. There he is. Hey!
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, awesome. I'm glad you're here. So, Dave, I wonder, we were in Tampa last week for a Power of Zero conference, and I asked if Dave was available to chat with us for a dinner tonight, and yes. And Dave has a couple of updates for us and maybe can answer some questions from the room. Dave, I wonder if you could share with us a little bit about your thoughts about the big, beautiful bill. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Oh, there it goes. Okay, we're back. Dave, you got us here?
Yep.
All right. Could you tell us your thoughts about the big, beautiful bill?
Yeah, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, I think, caught everybody off guard. We were all expecting the Trump 2017 tax cuts to end at the end of 2025, me being chief among them. And the reason was because in order to have, what we call a permanent tax cut, you need to be able to demonstrate that the tax bill is not increasing the debt significantly over the 10-year window. And what Republicans did to try to convince the world that they weren't increasing the debt was they basically created a new spending baseline. And to give you an example of how that might work, let's say you go on vacation and you spend $1,000 more extra while you're on vacation. Well, if you come back and convince your wife that the amount that you spent on vacation is the new baseline, then it doesn't feel like you're spending any more money, right? Well, that's exactly what happened with this bill. All of the additional expense that came about because of the 2017 tax cuts, they basically said, hey, that's the new normal, so we can't really count that as additional expense. And if it adds to the debt, we can't really count it. So that was the approach that they took, and they ended up being able to make the case that that it's not really adding to the national debt, although it is. And so they were able to make the case through budget reconciliation that they can make this tax cut permanent. And here's my thoughts about permanent tax cuts. We know that the IRS tax code by nature is sort of written in pencil. There's really no such thing as a permanent tax cut when it comes to the IRS tax code. And so my thought is that this is permanent. It's a temporary permanent tax cut, or will remain permanent until some politician feels like it's the responsible thing to do to start raising more revenue and sort of tamp down the debt. We know that based on the current trajectory of things, the national debt's going to increase by $2 trillion per year, each and every year between now and 2035. By 2035, we're going to have about $63 trillion of debt against a $42 trillion debt gross domestic product, which means our debt to GDP is going to be about 150%. So while I, just like anybody else, love low taxes, and I think it's great to be able to have low taxes when you're trying to shift highly taxable assets like 401ks and IRAs to tax-free, the cost of admission to get to the tax-free bucket is you got to be willing to pay a tax. And I love that for the foreseeable future, those taxes are going to be low. But I'm here to tell you that those taxes are not going to remain low forever. It's having spoken with lots of experts on this, I believe that we're going to this temporary tax cut, well, this permanent temporary tax cut is going to last about 10 years. I think that we really have about 10 years. I think come 2035, and we'll talk about why here in a second, but come 2035, tax rates are going to have to go up to be able to just pay the interest on all the national debt and other unfunded obligations. So while the one big beautiful bill was great in one respect, in the respect that it gives us some sort of certainty in terms of how we sort of go about executing our tax-free retirement plan, it really is just adding to the debt. And so the fix on the back end is going to be more draconian, it's going to be more aggressive, and taxes are going to have to go up even more come 2035.
Right. So tax cuts are only permanent until someone else comes along and changes it, basically. And we don't know what's going to happen when the next administration comes along or when they finally realize just how bad spending really is. Dave, you mentioned the Penn-Wharton study. I was able to download that and provide it for everybody. It is in your handouts if you'd like. Maybe you could talk about the study that you mentioned.
Yeah, so Penn-Wharton did a study of the debt trajectory. And they basically said that, yes, we can continue to kick the can down the road on sort of addressing the national debt situation. However, there will come a point in time beyond which we can no longer procrastinate the debt situation. And that comes basically what they say is 2043. And the debt study was commissioned in 2023. So basically they're saying come 2043, that's basically, if we don't right our fiscal ship of state by 2043, then no combination of raising taxes or reducing spending will sort of arrest the financial collapse of our nation. So 2043 is when our debt to GDP is about 200%. They did say in that study that sort of day of reckoning could happen as soon as 2040 when the debt to GDP ratio is 175%. So all that is to say that I don't believe that the United States can wait until 2040 until they try to address this. They can't wait until the 11th hour. I think that they have to be a little bit more proactive, a little bit more preemptive. So I believe that they will probably continue to kick the can down the road until 2035, and then 2035, we're going to start seeing some of those aggressive increases in tax rates. And if they don't do that by 2040 or 2043, then we really go into sort of this death spiral of debt from which there's no deliverance. So I really believe that we've got about 10 years to get our financial houses in order in terms of getting dollars shifted to tax-free. So I love certainty, especially when it comes to these types of retirement strategies. No 100% certainty, but I feel pretty good that we've got a fairly decent runway during which to take advantage of historically low tax rates.
Do you have any thoughts on the bite the bullet phase that we were talking about, where we might incur some additional costs on healthcare or Social Security taxation as we go through this Roth conversion process?
Yeah, so we always like to tell people, look, there's going to be some pain in the short term when it comes to these strategies, but you have to ask yourself if you want a little bit of pain now or a lot of pain later on. I mean, I really subscribe to what we call the rip the Band-Aid off approach to these types of things. And, you talked about income-related monthly adjustment amount. You're going to pay more in your Medicare premium in the short term. You might potentially, if you're already drawing Social Security, you could potentially pay some taxes on your Social Security. You might rise, maybe from the 22 to the 24% tax bracket. So there is some short-term pain. We give you permission to not enjoy it, but there is potentially some short-term pain. But what you have to realize is there's a finite period during which you're going to experience that pain. If I have to have a root canal, if the dentist says, hey, look, it's going to be a lot of pain, but for 30 minutes, I think I could probably steel myself long enough until that root canal is over. But if he says, hey, look, there's going to be some really unbearable pain and I don't know how long it's going to last, I mean, that's a completely different discussion. So really, when we're talking about shifting money to tax-free, you may end up paying higher taxes. You may end up paying, you may have an ACA subsidy that gets phased out. You may have a child tax credit if you still have kids at home that gets phased. There's all sorts of different things that you can lose because the IRS looks at, for example, a Roth conversion and they say, hey, this is increased income. You were a little bit wealthier that year. You had a little bit more income that year. Therefore, all of the nice things that we give to people that have low income, we're going to sort of take those away temporarily. And so it's really the rip the Band-Aid off approach. It's just a trade-off. You're trading potentially higher taxes in the short term for a tax-free existence or a close to tax-free existence for the rest of your life. And so, like I said, we give you permission to not enjoy it along the way. But once you hit that 0% tax bracket or as close to the 0% tax bracket as you can get, then you're really sort of immune from the impact of rising taxes down the road. And that's really where you want to be in a rising tax rate environment when the debt trajectory is really going off the rails. You want to shield yourself from any potential increases in tax rates down the road by getting as many of those tax deferred assets shifted to tax free.
Thank you. Let's open up the room. Anybody have any questions for Dave? Yes, please.
Do you think the capital gains tax is going to be increased
Great
as well?
question. Dave, the question was, what do you think about possible increases in capital gains rate taxes?
Absolutely. They're going to be looking in every quarter for more revenue. And there's no reason to believe that capital gains taxes, long-term capital gains taxes are going to be any more immune from increases than just the regular old income tax. So people say, hey, look, I'm going to be immune from the impact of rising taxes down the road because I have money in stocks or what have you. But that's just not the case. I mean, during Joe Biden's administration, he talked about all sorts of different ways that he could tax long-term capital gains differently or remove the step up in basis when it gets passed on to the next generation. So somebody ends up paying the piper eventually. But yeah, there's nothing when a country is slowly sliding into insolvency, there is nothing that's off limits to sort of a revenue hungry federal government.
Great, thank you. Other questions, please. Yes, sir.
How important are these strategies for the younger generation?
Oh, good question. The question is, how important are these strategies towards tax-free retirement for the younger generation?
That's a great question. I generally say that the further you are out from retirement, the younger you are, the more these strategies apply to you, which isn't to say that if you're in retirement, these strategies don't apply to you. But, I could show you a USA Today article that says if you are younger, you can plan on having an effective tax rate of 50% throughout your lifetime, which is to say that eventually we will get to the point where we need 50% tax rates just to pay the interest on all this debt, let alone any of the principal, let alone Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, or all the other things that we promise to Americans. And so the younger you are, the more you should be interested in tax-free strategies that shield you from the impact of higher taxes down the road. There's no excuse for someone in their 20s, 30s, or 40s to be putting money into a 401k. They should be putting money into Roth 401ks, Roth IRAs, LIRPs, all of these different things. There's really no excuse to have huge amounts of money in your tax deferred bucket, particularly when we know that tax rates when those younger people retire are likely to be dramatically higher than they are today. I mean, it's just a simple arbitrage. I mean, is your tax bracket down the road going to be higher or lower than they are today? I think the answer for all young Americans is that income tax bracket is going to be dramatically higher.
Good point. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, please, sir.
I assume the government can change the rules on the Roth IRAs, and do you think they would do that?
Good question. So the question is, do we think the government will change the rules on the Roth IRA, and will they do that? Can they do it? Would they?
The government can do anything they want, but I don't think it's likely. And the reason why is because if you look at how much money is in tax deferred accounts relative to how much money is in tax free accounts, the ratio is something like 40 to 1. You've got like $43 trillion in tax deferred accounts like 401ks and IRAs. You got like a little over like $1 trillion and a half in Roth IRAs. So if you're a revenue hungry federal government, where are you going to look for new revenue? Are you simply going to raise taxes on the 43 trillion, or are you going to try to sort of not honor the promise that you made to Americans who put money into Roth IRAs? You're going to say, hey, look, we promised that we would tax you on the seed, not the harvest. Now we're going to tax you on the seed and the harvest. I mean, that gets a lot of politicians voted out of office, which isn't to say higher tax rates on 401ks and IRAs don't get politicians voted out of office. But the point is, they've never made any promises that they are not going to raise taxes on your IRAs or 401ks down the road. They have sort of made a deal with America that we either tax you on the seed or on the harvest. We tax you on the seed, that's your Roth IRA. We tax you on the harvest, that's your IRA or traditional 401k. It would be pretty devious to lure you into a Roth IRA and then say we're going to tax you on the seed and the harvest. So I don't think it's likely. There's so little money to be had by taxing the few dollars that are in Roth accounts right now. The real money is to be had by taxing IRAs and 401ks at a much higher rate.
Great, thank you. One more question, perhaps. Going once, going twice. Oh, wait, oh, excuse me, yes, please.
So David, Sweet Spot always says 24%
24.
tax.
Yeah.
So without the big beautiful bill, there was this feeling that you had to do it very quickly. So what do you do when you're in the higher tax bracket now that we have more time?
So Dave, you always mentioned your favorite tax bracket is the 24% bracket, and I wonder if you could share about why the 24% is your favorite. But then also, what happens when you're in such a situation with income or assets that you go into higher brackets as you do these Roth conversions, or paying, you're more than 24?
Yeah, 24, if you read chapter 6 of my 2018 updated version of the Power Zero, you know that 24% tax bracket really is the sweet spot in the Trump tax cuts. And the reason is, it's only, I'll give you an example. If you're in the 12% tax bracket and I come to you with a tax strategy that bumps you up into the 22 and I say, hey, look, in an effort to avoid a doubling of tax rates over time, we're going to bump you from a 12 to a 22% tax bracket. We're going to say, we're doubling your tax rate in the short term to protect you from a doubling of tax rates over time. That's not a very compelling conversation to have. However, if you're already in the 22% tax bracket and I say, hey, look, for a measly 2% more, we can bump you from the 22 to 24, but it gives you an extra $195,000 that you can shift from tax deferred to tax free from your IRA to your Roth IRA. And it only costs you 2% more on the margin. We're not doubling your tax rate to get that money shifted to tax-free. We're increasing it ever so slightly on the margin by a measly 2%. And so, and I used to always tell people, pre-2026, the future version of the 22 is 25. So 24 is still lower than the future version of the 2022, which is 25. And so we don't know what the future version of the 22 is going to be, but maybe it will be close to 25. The point I'm trying to make here is that the 24% tax bracket is a good deal of historic proportions. We should be taking advantage of it as long as it's around. If you've got over $1 million of assets in your IRAs and 401ks, that gives you so much more space to sort of operate in to get massive amounts of money shifted to tax-free and protected forever. And so if you are above and beyond the 24% tax bracket right now, I guess the next question I would ask is, how much longer are you going to be in the 32% tax bracket or higher? I think we got 10 years during which to navigate these historically low income tax rates. And so my question would be, is there going to be any time in that next 10-year period where you're going to drop back into the 24% tax bracket? If you think you're always going to be in the 32% tax bracket, then I would say you should probably take advantage of the 32% tax bracket while it's still around. So it really, the question becomes, are you in the 32 because you're still working and because you've just got lots of maybe joint income or what have you? And do you foresee your tax bracket getting any lower any time in the next 10 years? If that's the case, I would probably postpone. 32% is my least favorite tax bracket. It's 8% more than the 24. And I would much rather sort of operate within that massive 24% tax bracket if it's at all within reach within the next 10 years.
Great. Thanks, Dave. We're going to let you run. How about a round of applause for, thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Salute.
Take care.
No matter what we do, we're going to have some bills. We're going to have some increases in some costs. The question is, can we rip the Band-Aid off, bite the bullet for this compact period of time? And that's why Dave and I are both big advocates of filling up the 24% bracket. I know it's a monster check we have to write out. Lucia and I deal with this all the time, the pain and anguish of having to do it. But we owe it anyways. We just do. And all we're doing is settling up at a known and controllable rate rather than a future higher and unknown rate. So at this conference down in Tampa, there were a lot of presenters, a lot of speakers, a lot of slides, and this one in particular stood out for me. Because I'm asked a lot, okay, this is cool, I'm doing Roth conversions, I'm stocking money away, I'm paying taxes. What do I live on? And the answer is I can show you, when we do those big 3-ring binders, I can show you where the numbers are and what the plan is. This is another factor that Lucia and I have to think about all the time is how much are we going to Roth convert and how much are we going to spend to live on? Because if our basic premise is taxes are higher in the future and we should accelerate taxes in today, that means when someone says to me, I need $50,000 to live on this year, what account should I take it from? I should take it from my Roth, right? Because it's tax, I won't pay a tax, right? No, we should take it from the IRA because we want to trigger that tax, get it settled, burn through those awful tax deferred assets, and let the tax-free ones continue to grow. So in the master game plan, there is this balancing act between let's avoid IRMA if we can, let's max out as much Roth conversions as we can while still taking what we need from IRAs and 401ks to support your standard of living. And somewhere in there is a magic calculation. Lucia and I talk about this all the time with various folks, and we want to help you find that number. Next year we come back and do it again, updated based on the new rules. And it always comes back to kind of this question as well. What's the master design here? Yeah, Roth conversions, good, I got it. I'm past first base now. What happens next? And for a lot of us, we've done 2-3 years of Roth conversions, and the idea is to build a platform that supports your standard of living. If we're doing this project, we call it getting to zero. Getting to zero tax bracket, yes, but let's also get to zero worry. Let's stop worrying about where our next income dollar is going to come from, whether we're going to run out of money, what health care and long-term care costs will be. Stop worrying about the market. Stop worrying about volatility, inflation. How do we build that master plan, the next phase? And we start with the concept that most people have base expenses, fixed expenses, health care, taxes, maybe a mortgage, transportation to some degree, although it gets kind of fuzzy because maybe we travel less as we stop going back and forth to work. And then you get in the middle here, we have things that become more and more flexible until finally really flexible. And we say things like over here, travel, vacations. You might look at your portfolio and say, wow, I made 20% that year. That's great. Let's take 10% and do that Europe vacation we talked about. It's flexible. We always say, what's the end look like? What is the result supposed to be? When we're all done, after we've done the bite the bullet phase, everything has been transitioned into Roths. What should it look like? Whoops. So first of all, we think it should be his and hers LIRPs. LIRPs is the modern way to take care of what we feel is the biggest risk out there. Once you've saved enough money to be able to live comfortably, what's the next big risk? Some sort of a healthcare crisis, right? The modern way to deal with that is a LIRP. We're going to break down a LIRP a little bit later on. Once we've set aside the money that's going to a LIRP, what happens with the rest? We believe roughly this should be a 50-50 split between what I call, first of all, the safe money bucket, and this is the bucket that is stable, predictable, reliable, always goes forward, never goes backwards, generates a reliable stream of income that can never be taken away from you, for both you and your spouse, for as long as you are alive. We call that a private pension. And it's designed to replicate the pensionness that used to exist in the older days. You work on the railroad, they put some money away from you, you stop working, they pay you a pension, everyone's happy. Those are all fading out, right? And in fact, many companies are offering access to the what? The cash balance, the lump sum amount. Why is that? They want to give you the flexibility to do this on your own if you want. Now, they're happy to do it through the company if you like. You can take the single life, the joint option, whatever, but there's some problems with that, we think. If you pass, who can inherit your pension? Your spouse, usually. If you and your spouse go, who inherits it after that? Nobody. We suggest maybe take the lump sum. Give it to a private pension company like Jake or Ryan and his outfit. They will happily recreate the pensionness that you would have had before. But it is allowed to be invested in the market that gives you some potential for raises. It can be going to the spouse, but it can also go to the kids if there's a remaining residual value. Long story short, we think a private pension, Dave calls it a principal protection plan, is the foundation. And that drives your fixed expenses. It's a regular paycheck. There are raises that come in to offset inflation. It might also have a long-term care benefit. So 50% of the money roughly in the safe money bucket. The remainder goes into the risk money bucket. And this is stocks and bonds and stuff as we have always done. It is designed to be growth oriented or to take advantage of opportunities, but I'm a big fan of risk mitigation. When we were 30 years old, you can invest in JDS Uniphase and day trade and do all that stuff. You know, we can be aggressive, right? But as we start to transition into relying on this money, we might want to back down on the risk profile to some degree. As you do Roth conversions, some is going to be converted in the safe money bucket. I'm not worried about that because it's 100% guaranteed. But the stuff that's going to the risk money bucket, after a while, these are big dollars. We've converted your 401k and IRAs and now it's all in a Roth. That's a pretty big Roth account. I don't think I want to put that too much at risk. So the strategy that is most commonly used here is called asset allocation. And asset allocation says that we don't know which way the market's going to go, so let's invest in every asset category there is in a scientifically measured dosage so that if something goes down, something else goes up, they cancel each other out, and the volatility of the portfolio is minimized. I'm a big believer in that investment decisions should not be made by how old you are. So I don't drive investment decisions by whether you're working or how old you are. I tend to drive them by what is the economy trying to tell us. And by the way, the economy is trying to tell us 2026 is going to be pretty good. But I don't want to take away from the thought that we are getting into years where if we muck it up, we don't have a lot of time to recover. And maybe that should be taken into account. Asset allocation is an old story. It's the pie. You know, some stocks, some bonds, some international, some large cap, some small cap, all mixed together, taking different funds from different providers, using metrics to find the best in class funds, getting the right dosage depending on your investment style, and then tactically and strategically managing that based on current conditions. That's asset allocation. Over time, over a full market cycle from top to bottom back to top again, we would expect to give us S&P-like returns, 8 to 12% per year-ish on average. Not every year, but over that time frame, we should expect 8 to 12, but with 1/3 the volatility of the S&P 500. So probably in a perfect world, our story looks something like this. A private pension plan, which has been converted to a Roth over time, so that your private pension is tax-free. And by the way, that's one problem with a pension from the company. If you take it from the company, it can never be converted to a Roth. It will never be tax-free. This at least allows that to be tax-free. The other portion, the risk money, the opportunity money that's designed to take advantage of growth and to give you flexibility for things like travel and fun and all of your variable expenses. This is a good time to stop. I know I've unpacked a lot here, but are there any thoughts or questions or reactions or things we can share together? Joel or Noel, do you want to talk any more on your topic there? Yeah, did I answer your question okay?
Yeah, you did. I
Okay.
just thought, if I retire and, I want to take my skills and make some money
Yeah.
with them, am I going to get penalized on my retirement?
Conceivably. Yeah. Wild story. We occasionally encounter people that if they keep working, they're going to muck up the whole thing.
Yeah,
Because they're making so much money or have sufficient resources that if they keep going, we can't convert Roths fast enough to get ahead of not only rising taxation, but also RMDs. We run models all the time in the office where people defer, and they hit age 75 and their first distribution's $250,000. And then on top of what they're working is now what tax bracket, I mean, it's an inevitable problem. That's why we're trying to get ahead of it. I tell people, look, I know you love what you do, but you got to stop working. You know, go volunteer somewhere maybe. It's a tough decision. Yeah. Yes, sir.
We've been talking about the RMD.
Yeah.
Hockey stick.
The hockey stick.
The hockey stick.
And has the Big Beautiful Bill extended that a little bit?
Not to my knowledge, no. It's still age 75 for most of us.
About that, about
Well, say that again?
Can you just touch on that a little bit more?
What RMDs? Yeah, so RMDs, required minimum distribution. Keyword here, required. At some point in time, the feds will say, you know, we've given you tax deferrals on your IRAs for quite a while now. We'd kind of like some tax money now, please. And they will start to require you to distribute from your 401ks and IRAs, generally age 75, and they have a figure in mind for you. There's a formula. We go through a little piece of math and say, based on the balance of your accounts and your age, you must distribute X amount. Generally speaking, it's about 4% in the first year, 4% of your balance, which is not a big deal. But next year, the multiple goes up. Now it's roughly 5 point something, then 6 point something something, then 8 point something. And so it accelerates. It's designed to empty your account by Lucia. Is it age 105, is it? Designed to empty your account by age 105. So as your account grows, as you get older, the distribution multiple gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And that alone can easily push you into the highest possible tax bracket. And if that's happening 10, 15 years from now, and you haven't planned for it, ta-da, we are now benefiting from the increase in taxes as well. And the RMD is putting you in a, we see people all the time that have the privilege of paying more in taxes to get the money out of their 401k than they saved when they put it in. So it's an interesting story.
So it behooves us.
Yes, to accelerate.
Yes.
It does. Convert, accelerate. If you're putting money into your tax-deferred 401k now, consider switching to the Roth 401k. If they don't have a Roth 401k, consider contributing only to the matching level, and anything that you had before that was going in there, let's redirect it to something else. Even a regular old investment account at capital gains rates, something other than tax deferred. Tax deferred made sense in the 70s when the highest tax bracket was 70%, and it kind of worked out for those folks. But now it's the other way around. Thanks, Roger. Yes.
So is there someone, maybe Lucia or someone who actually helps you plan that out?
Yes.
Especially when you have like, you know, a spouse that's perhaps a different age or whatever.
Yes.
So that you can say, this is year 1, this is year 5, this is how we're going to do it.
That's exactly what this process is. We go through the math, we put together some schedules and ledgers and make projections and recommendations. Lucia backs up that with us, confirms the math, gives us some alternates just in case, and we do it each and every year to update based on your updates, the tax law updates, the world updates. Absolutely, that's what we do. Thank you. All right, so what are the tools we use? What do these things look like? This is a hypothetical private pension. In this example, our person was 57 years old when they started it. They made a deposit of $400,000, IRA rollover, maybe the lump sum from their pension plan. That money gets invested. And in this particular instance, we did 4.7% in that year. When the market goes up, so does the balance of the account. We put in 400,000, it went up to 408. So when the market goes up, so do you. Interestingly enough, here, the market went down. Now, you don't see a negative number there because in a private pension plan, you're 100% guaranteed not to drop. So all it's saying is you made no forward progress, but we had no losses. In fact, you'll notice the number from 1 year to the next is exactly the same number. Not even a penny of loss, which is interesting. Because in any other investment in the world, if you had an absolutely zero performance year, your account would still go down. Why? Because of expenses. This doesn't bill its expenses in the same way as traditional investments. This is a return sharing arrangement. Just like when you go to the bank, you make a deposit, they pay you 5%. You know darn well they're loaning it to some kid for 10, right? That's how they make their money. Same thing here. Following year, market goes up, so does your balance. Market goes down, exactly the same number from 1 year to the next. Meanwhile, over here, we are not taking any withdrawals from this for a little while, in this example. Now, in reality, you could take it immediately, you can defer as long as you like, you can take income whenever you choose. Just in this example, we're deferring for 7-something years. Why might we be deferring taking this? What are we living on if we're not taking income from here? Yes, I heard it. 401s. Yeah. Remember we said burn down taxable assets. So we're depleting 401s and IRAs and spending those dollars while this is brewing and building its value. Just like Social Security or any other pension, the longer you wait to take the income, the higher the what? Payout. The higher the payout. That's what we'd like. So let's get through our not so happy assets and let this one continue to brew. Eventually, we switch on income. So in this example, this person is taking $52,000 worth of lifetime guaranteed income. Notice in the very first year that he starts it, the market had one of those negative years. Does the income go down? No, it stays exactly the same from 1 year to the next. So once the income is switched on, it cannot be taken away even in market downturns. Following year, the market starts to show some signs of growth and we start to get raises on the payouts that we take. A regular pension from the company won't do that. A private pension, if it's properly structured, will. As the market raises, you get raises in your payout. Once that payout has been credited to you, again, a market downturn, but your income stays exactly the same. What I think is crazy wild here, let's take a look at the balance of the account, the underlying balance, versus the amount of money that it is paying out. Think about this for a sec. If you had an investment worth $154,000 and it's paying out $75,000 of income, what's your rate of return? Like ridiculous? Yeah. Yes, please.
One, don't you have to keep the money in that account for a certain amount of years before you can start taking?
Negative. You can start it as soon as what, 30 days?
They call it month anniversary, so your next anniversary from when you open it. So we start January 1, it can be February 1 or 1.
Essentially immediately. Now obviously,
No CDSCs on that.
well, that's different.
Different.
But that's if you move it?
That's if you like left the account. So that'd be if
Right.
you're, moving your money and said, hey, I don't want this anymore, I'm sending it to a Schwab.
Okay.
So the company that runs this would like to have you make a commitment to the program. They want you to stick around. They want you to show you how cool it is. They want to recover their operating costs. So they do have a surrender period that runs for a bunch of years. But as long as you are not leaving the program, hey, I hate this, send it all back, you would not incur those surrender charges. You can switch on the income within 30 days, basically immediately. You can also take, correct me if I'm wrong, but random withdrawals up to 10% per year of the principal, correct? So there are access provisions other than surrendering, but yeah, the penalty only applies in a full surrender. So can anybody tell me what general interest rates are right now? Which way do we think interest rates are headed? Up or down? Down. Okay. Let's give Miss Johnson over here the down one. I saw her first.
The dumpster fire desk pencil.
Okay.
Don't worry, you get to build it.
And I mention this because how does interest rates affect our whole power of zero philosophy? One of the things that advisors we talk about a lot is when interest rates are low, you refinance your house. When interest rates are high, you refinance your retirement. That's why some of you, we've been talking about older legacy programs, and we're trying to clean those up. So the reason we're up on this is because those are older programs that were issued at times when interest rates were low. As interest rates have risen, we're getting better rates on private pension payouts than we are on older legacy programs. Older legacy programs are also not Roth conversion friendly, meaning we would have to surrender the program, lose any of the income benefits in order to get it to a Roth. So it's either get it to a Roth or always have a taxable stream of income. Question?
This is that 400,000 was a Roth conversion.
Well, no, it's an initial IRA deposit, but then we're doing Roth conversions internally within that account to convert it to a Roth to make it tax-free by the time we take it out.
All right.
Cool. All right, let's move on a little bit here. So as you scroll down here, we'll notice that even though the balance of the account runs out, by the way, this is a side effect. It will burn through the cash in the account. It will go to zero. You will have a balance that will no longer be available for you to access as a lump sum withdrawal. However, the income will continue, and it will continue to grow based on market performance, such that in this example, if we ran it all the way out to the end here, for this person was age 87, he deposited $400 but received 2.4 mil of tax-free payout. We love these things, and that forms the foundation of that two-bucket philosophy. Our preferred option is to make the payout a joint payout, his and hers. You pass away, it continues for your spouse. If there's still money in the bucket when your spouse passes, the bucket will go to the kids. If the bucket's been depleted, nothing remaining for the kids, which is a great segue to my next piece, because some people say, wait a minute, that was the money I wanted to get to the kids. Well, two things. Number one, if you're receiving a high payout of income, that means we might not be invading the risk money. And that can continue to grow and be a larger sum of money that can go to the kids. But also, we have the LIRP. So a LIRP. For the next prize, what does LIRP stand for?
Life insurance retirement.
Woo! Smoking.
You've got exceptionally bad dad jokes.
Life insurance retirement plan. Why on God's earth, when you have all the money you need to retire, the kids are out of the house, the mortgage is paid, why on earth do we need life insurance? We don't. But we might want some of the benefits that come along with it to take care of some other issues for us. So I'd like to break down how a LIRP works a little bit. We don't need it for the life insurance part, but we might want it for the tax-sheltered cash value that comes along with it, and the long-term care, and maybe a few other things. In this particular scenario, my friend in this example is making deposits of $33,000 a year for 7 years. For the next prize, this one's getting complicated now. Does anybody know why it's 7 years that we make deposits?
Because of the IRS.
You're close enough. For Mr. Zanko. So you're right. The IRS guidelines for how these things are funded and managed and taxed have been spelled out since 1988. It was part of the President Reagan TAFRA something tax law, and it's survived all the various budget bills and tax bills since that time. The IRS says the most efficient way to get money into these programs is over a 7-year period. In fact, if you said to me, hey Charles, I got 231 sitting around, and I want to drop it into one of these LIRP things, can I do it? I would say yes, but not all in one shot. It has to be dribbled in over a period of 7 years. Is it mandatory? Do we have to do this schedule for the next prize? Can we do less?
Yes.
Yes. Who was the first one? Roger again. Oh man, you got to teach this class. Well, it'll be one for the missus when you get home. Let's give a girl one.
Give me a girl one.
So you can do less.
All right, well, you get a yodeling pickle.
Charles Wareham told me that.
You did, okay. A yodeling pickle. Crazy. So yes, you can do less. Can you do more?
Yes.
No. So, these things are very tightly controlled by the IRS. You can put less in, but you cannot put in 1 penny more without violating the tax laws and causing a whole bunch of tax problems that we don't want. This is truly an investment. The money goes into something we call the cash value. Now you'll notice there's 2 different numbers there. That's because if you walk away on the first day, you're going to take a surrender charge. But this column here, the current value, that's the investment value. They're invested in stuff that is very similar to the private pension that goes up when the market goes up, but does not go down when the market goes down. So you'll see year after year rises in the market. In fact, after you're done funding, 7 years out, you spent $231. 7 years out, you say, you know what, I hate this thing, I changed my mind. You could surrender it and still walk away, with just a little bit more than you've deposited. And if you wait a little bit longer, it's even more still than you're deposited. That's not the best option. These are designed to be kept for your lifetime, but you can walk away and you can recover your value. In fact, this is method number 1 for how to get your money out. You say, I want out. And they write you a check. For the next prize in the bucket, is this taxable?
No.
Yes! This is the only instance in where a LIRP will generate a taxable event where you say, I want all my cash out, thank you very much. So that's method number 1, is a straight up surrender of the value of the account and we walk away. Method number 2, from day 1, it is a life insurance policy. The day 1 it goes into force, you have a tax-free death benefit to your heirs of some dollar amount. And that dollar amount will increase for a little while we are funding it in order to qualify for the IRS tax treatment that we want. When you stop funding it, you will notice the death benefit drops off very sharply. Why? Do we need life insurance? No. So as soon as we can get away with we're done funding it, we've satisfied the IRS requirements, we want to cut that death benefit down to the cheapest possible level that we can to minimize the cost of the insurance. But if you pass, method number 2 for how to get your money out is through a death benefit. Most people would like to live. And so in this instance, arbitrarily and randomly, I have said 15 years out, we might want to take a stream of income. Maybe our cost of living has gone up. Maybe we want to start taking more vacations. Maybe we have a healthcare crisis and we want to start to raid a second stream of income. We can switch on tax-free annual distributions from the policy. Most people don't take the same amount every single year. They say, well, I want to buy a second house, so I'll take 100, and nothing. I want a boat, so I'll take 50, nothing. I got someone getting married, I'll take another. Random distributions as you see fit, which is number 3 on the hit parade for how we get our money out. Number 4, the biggest reason that we recommend LIRPs. Who wants to guess the 4th way to get money out, the real reason we need a LIRP?
Long-term care.
I heard it over here somewhere. There we go. What do we have for Miss Johnson?
Finger puppet, squirrel.
That's totally you too, Trish.
I tried it out. It worked out. Awesome. Product testing.
So in addition to having a tax-free death benefit for your heirs, it also has a chronic illness rider where if you get ill, the tax-free death benefit is accelerated and paid to you while you're alive to offset long-term care. That's why we do these. We want a tool that gives us a long-term care benefit. Now think for a second, if you had a traditional long-term care plan, you've paid into it for 10, 15 years, and you suddenly pass away peacefully in your sleep. Do you get the money back? Nope. If you get sick, how long do you have to wait before it pays you? 90 days, correct. So if you pass peacefully in your sleep, all that money is lost and wasted. In this instance, if you pass, somebody gets a death benefit. So this is a multi-purpose tool to take an asset and deploy it in a number of different ways that can benefit you. So quick recap. That's the big picture. Step one, let's run some models. Many of you have embraced that already. We're going to do some calculations. We're going to work with Dave's group out in Chicago to do Roth conversion numbers. We'll work with Lucia and her team to confirm that work, provide some possible alternates, and that's kind of the entry point. Once we get underway with Roth conversions, probably we're building LIRPs, probably we're cleaning up some easy stuff, moving old IRAs and 401s, maybe building a private pension plan, but then year 2, year 3, year 4, whatever we're doing to finish off the Roth conversions, we're also building this picture. Let's get the LIRPs in place and funded. Let's make sure the principal protection plan is working right. Let's get wealth management underway so that eventually we get to a spot where we are in the zero tax bracket, long-term care is covered, income is covered, risk is covered. Everything we can think of that you would possibly want to manage in terms of planning a retirement has been worked out and thought through. Liz Johnson, where did you hide out? Elizabeth Johnson? Can I share your story that you shared in the office the other day? Would you mind telling me? Liz Johnson and Mr. Johnson here were some of our earliest Power of Zero clients. Would you mind talking about how far into the process you are?
We have just completed the second year, and we have 2 more years to go.
2 more years?
Yeah.
And then you're fully converted?
And then we're fully converted.
And what happens then? We were talking about healthcare and the things you're working on, but what's your plan towards the end?
So once we're done, obviously paying these huge checks, we're planning on actually enjoying our retirement, traveling, etc.
Yeah.
Because we've been held back, obviously, by the fact that we're outlaying all this cash.
And you did it very rapidly, too.
Yes.
We were maxing out the tax brackets, large conversions, getting ahead of this curve as quickly as possible so that now, roughly 2 years from now, zero taxable income, no more IRMA, no Social Security taxation. Social Security income is offset by the standard deduction, which makes that tax-free. Healthcare costs, you qualify for the exchange. Well, thank you. Good deal. I wish that for all of you. I'd love to see you all in the zero tax bracket because twice zero is still zero. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'll stick around. Thank you.